Mech Warrior 101, Mech Tactics 101. We're pushing out a couple of ideas here, specifically focusing on the Battletech core set, Game of Armored Combat, and I'm also including what I'm calling the head-to-head starter set. This is the time. This is a great time to jump into Battletech because both sets, standing alone or combined, really give you an amazing, Catalyst did an amazing job, give you that jumping point into Battletech, and everything in the Game of Armored set is usable. You will. It's a miniatures game, and Battletech is amazing and highly addictive from that perspective. It's a fantastic jumping off point as you add other mechs. But in this podcast, so I say that because we are artificially limiting ourselves. We're not getting into infantry yet and tanks. We're looking at the mechs in there, the maps, and the tactics to begin cutting down your learning curve. I think that would be the best explanation for this series that I'm pushing out there to my channel and what I'm posting on my blog. Let's cut down that learning curve. Let's get you ready for your first couple of missions and get you out of the simulator and into the mech itself. So with the hex maps, there's line of sight blocking terrain. There's elevation, level 1, level 2, level 3, essentially hills on there. And when and how do we want to utilize them? Generally speaking, now it is all about positioning. Battletech is about getting in there and blowing stuff up and rolling lots of dice. But positioning is key because as fast as these mechs are and as fast as they can move, they are very, very limited in the turn ability, the facing ability. Rear armor is thin, except for the Awesome, which in-game has more rear armor than some forward-facing mechs on there. But essentially, with positioning and navigation, it is very chess-like. Figuring out on initiative where you're going, where your opponent's going, where can you line up, where are they weak, where are they strong. So it is this back and forth followed by furiously rolling lots of dice to try and blow stuff up. So you would think, okay, with the hex maps, if I get up on one of those hills and I'm at a high elevation, that will allow me essentially a almost 360 field of view to start shooting. So if I get the Awesome up there that has the redundancy of those PPCs, it has the range, and it has what I term alpha value, a real threat, primary threat, 10 points of damage per hit, you can really, really begin to cripple things. But we never really want to be on top of a hill because here's the challenge with that. Essentially, you're putting yourself up there, and everything else can engage you immediately. There's this idea in Battletech where you never really want to engage one-to-one. So if I have the Awesome and you have the T-Bolt, I don't want to be slugging back and forth against you. I mean, that happens, and sometimes we have to do what we have to do. I'd rather be sitting there with the Wolverine backing me. I'm just picking mechs. I'd rather engage your Awesome with the Wolverine and the T-Bolt face-to-face, and the Commando or the Locust is trying to run around behind you, either as a distraction or rear armor. I want to try and engage 2-to-1 or 3-to-1 on there. Now, that's easy in the simulators. That's easy to talk about in the podcast and vlogs, but you're going to use terrain on the hex maps in terms of woods, elevation, the hills, to navigate and see, can you trap someone in there where they can't get the full facing? Can you trap someone in there in between some of those maps where the other mechs backing them, now of course they're going to move, maybe it's only for one turn. Maybe you send your Awesome first through that narrow gap on some of the maps, and for that one turn you're like, okay, the armor can take it, and I can engage you 2 or 3-to-1. Next turn, your other stuff will move up. Now we're engaging on there. So there might be times when that happens. If you put yourself at a high elevation, you gain nothing on there. You're lighting yourself up as a target. This is partially compounded. There are times when you do want to climb the hill, and it's not necessarily take the hill or capture the flag, plant the flag, some of the scenarios. The challenge with a hex map, and this is not a criticism, it's designed this way, it is self-limiting in that you can't move off the hex map voluntarily, with the exception of some mission parameters on there. So artificially, it forces you to close. It puts a lot of mechs in range. It causes you to start taking damage. It speeds the game up on there. Obviously, some stuff happened before you got to that hex map, but this is the point of contact. This is where scanners are like, there's mechs in the areas, and this is going down. When you link multiple hex maps, or when you start playing on a traditional wargaming table, now things change a little bit. Maybe you can be up on a hill and engage 3-to-1. You have 3 mechs up on a hill, you have line of sight to something moving through there, and you can attack. So tactically, the more space, the more opportunity, but on single hex maps, do you want to light up like that? Now, where does it change? Given the elevation, kicking is brutal in Battletech because it force multiplies more than punching. The trade-off here is punching, even as a light mech, you have a 1 in 6 chance of smacking that mech in the head, of punching that mech in the head. And certainly the awesome or the thunderbolt hitting in the head can sometimes blast the head, clearing off another mech. You always force, even if you survive, a pilot check, a consciousness check. And even that first check being so low, look, it's Battletech. There's times I don't want to roll those dice. I really don't on there. And when you fail that check, that takes you out for a turn on there. That's where things get really interesting. So the trade-off, the idea is the punch table represents a chance to hit the head and upper armor. The kicks by their very nature are going to be lower, but you're magnifying the tonnage. On a side note, you could fall. If you miss, you make pilot checks. Putting that aside, the compressed nature of the hex maps means there could be opportunity, especially for some of the machines that have jump capability or a little bit on the faster end spectrum, where going back to this scenario of you're awesome or a mech moving through a narrow gap where there's some hills or a massive difference in elevation, if I can run up a mech up there and have an elevation modifier by standing on those hills and you're on the base hex beneath it, now that means my kicking is not going to be rolling on the kick table. It's going to be adjusted for elevation, and I'm going to be rolling on the punch table. Now I'm going to drop kick your head off, 1 in 6 chance, to just amazing on there. So there are opportunities, and that's what you have to be careful of, being caught by surprise on there, where someone can run and gun or jump up on that hill, and now suddenly they're savagely kicking you on there and dishing out a lot more damage to the upper areas, which often have less armor and leading into the head. But tactically for now, I won't say never, just be aware. There's a rare chance to be up there shooting on there. You're going to cause everyone to engage you 3-to-1, 2-to-1, and you don't want to be there that way.